graphics up on the screen for you, and you can see there how the margin sits in favor of Jarek, who definitely capitalized from a poor round for Riley Preston last time out after he ran into issues with Jarek twice in both races at the same corner. And as you can see, Reese Gardner had gone to fourth with a close scrap back to Kananzi. So going to be a few different places to keep our eyes on today as we go racing around Belle Isle, qualifying now looking to heat up out there with a couple minutes on the clock and 8 minutes remaining. As always, 10 minutes in total for the drivers to put down 3 laps. Should be getting quicker as each lap goes by as the tires heat up and they put some more grip into their cars. What about Simon Mizomo then? What can he do? He's been languishing somewhere just around the outside of the top 10 for most of this season. He'll be wanting to do a little bit better. Based off his practice times, he's looking to be about the same today, though. He was about 12th in practice, I do believe. So he'll be looking for a bit of an improvement here in qualifying. You can see already how bumpy this track is, how difficult it is to get it right. It's concrete menace waiting for you on the exit of every corner if you get your line just a bit wrong, Cameron.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's a lot of chances that you can possibly find yourself in that concrete wall, very easily make a mistake just from pushing a little bit too hard. And it's just all about precision and just being as confident as you possibly can be. Obviously, these TCR cars are going to probably move around quite a bit due to the soft suspension, and being front wheel drive, it's going to make it a little bit more tricky when that front end starts to bounce up and down off the ground. So minimizing the wheel spin and just minimizing the amount of time you're spending with the front wheels off the deck is just going to really be the main focus for a lot of drivers to stop them from ending up in the wall or stop them from having tire issues later in the race.
It certainly is. That exit off the final corner is pretty crucial too, because it's a pretty long run. They're down towards the start-finish stripe, which Mizomo is going to reach now, and his first lap will put him in 5th place, the 138.862. Jackson Susan Harlow with a big margin, 137.2 out at the front of the field. In practice, he was 0.6 quicker than everyone else, so that's ominous for the rest of the field. Kobe Williams has put himself up into 2nd place too.
Kobe didn't do too badly at some point last time out, so we'll see how he goes here at Belle, sitting P2 at the moment. Not too far off Jackson Susan Harlow, so it does bode well for him by the looks of it in terms of lap time, but we'll see what happens as more times start to come in. You've got a few drivers yet to set times, the likes of Kananzi and Preston and Otten, Gardner and various others who are probably hoping to try and put themselves up the order. A couple of them have actually invalidated their first laps by the looks of it as well. So this is going to be one of those things, is that while you do get 3 laps around here, you don't really want to be burning up those laps more or less.
No, you don't. It's very easy to pick up a incident point here, or not an incident point, but an invalidated lap time. Of course, you get a 0 times, which does invalidate your lap if you just gently hit the wall, which is surprisingly easy to do, especially with these front wheel cars. They'll have to understeer off the exit of the corners, and you'll see if they damage one or two that we'll probably see a few wing mirrors getting dumped off the sides of these cars by the time we get to the end of these races as well, which is pretty cool to see, as Harlow extends his margin, I should say, back to 0.2 of a second, as Sebastian Murray Wesberg will come out of the final corner. Currently sitting in 11th place, looking to improve at a 139.113. Looks like a pretty decent exit, keeping it as tight as you can through that last little kink. And it's a 140.652, so not a good lap for him. There's been a mistake somewhere out there on that one.
Yeah, also seen Reese Gardner go to P10, Mia Ott to 11th. See who else is on a lap. Jake Sperry hasn't set a lap yet, so Sperry is still going to be starting at rear of field at the moment. Preston onto his 3rd lap, starting his 3rd lap now, and still is yet to set a lap time. So Preston clearly is struggling a little bit with the challenges of that a street circuit poses at the moment. Thomas Hins is going to come across the line and going to improve to P5 by the looks of it.
I tell you what, Preston was about a paper's width away from slapping the fence off the exit of turn 2. I think he got away with it, but certainly about as close as he will want to get all night long coming out of there. So this lap was almost over before it even started. as we're on board with him now as he slides his way towards the back straight. Didn't quite nail that section there. This corner is really hard because the track rises up, but it also kind of dips right on the inside of the track, and you can pick up the front right a bit.
Yeah, you certainly can. Just primarily due to the way that the corner is, it's slightly off canvas, so it's very easy to pick that inside front up, like you said. And also, some of these curbs are really, really aggressive and quite large as well, and can unsettle the cars quite easily. But at the moment, Preston doing a reasonable job to stay out of the concrete walls. By the looks of it, comes through the final section right up on that inside curb as well, trying to get the maximum amount of turn that you possibly can, running right up against the concrete through into the second to last corner, trying to brake as late as he possibly can, staying away from that inside curb and nearly hitting that outside wall before a pretty solid run onto the front straight. So we'll see what the lap time is. Looks like Harlow has indeed gone quicker, and Ryan Jarrett currently P2, but as Preston comes across the line, it's going to be a 30.5 and puts him up into P4.
A 1:37.3. I'm going to put him fourth, but he is a long way back from Harlow. He's got half a second over everyone at the moment. Ryan Jarrett, championship leader, sitting in second. This is exactly what Harlow needs to try to recover from third place in the championship. So he's turned up and really turned up the wick for this one, hasn't he? As Grant Matterford comes across in 16th place, and that lap is going to net him a disappointing result. He'll stay 16th.
It looks like majority of the field is pretty much completed their laps. A few others still completing their final laps by the looks of it. Mia Ott, Joshua Cavallaro, and a few others still circling, trying to get a little bit more pace out of their cars by the looks of it. But majority of the front few pretty much finished their runs.
Yeah, getting it done reasonably early today. Joshua Cavallaro, 24th, and he will stay there. No, he'll go up one spot further up the order after the end of his qualifying as Sebastian Murray Westberg dives it down onto pit road, which is almost hidden from shot as John Miller whacks the fence, and that front left is completely destroyed. That's lap done for him. There's the potential on the right-hand side. It's surprisingly hard to get into if you're tucked right up behind someone, so you've got to be mindful of that when we get into race 2 later this evening. Of course, 2 races, 2 qualifying sessions coming up for you tonight. Perry Anastakis, 22nd, a 138.942, means that 144 car will go up to 20th place with 30 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, so a good run by the likes of Dean Ross. Clearly, he has been getting a decent amount of pace in these last few rounds. Has showed a lot of potential at some point, as we saw last time out. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes tonight, whether he can sort of keep that momentum going into the rest of this round and also next round as well.
And then we'll be back for season 4 just after that. But of course, let's have a look at our starting grid for race 1 of the evening. Jackson Susan Harlow is on the pole once again. Ryan Jarrett will start alongside him. Kobe Williams from third. Riley Preston makes it your top 3 in the championship, starting out of the top 4 spots. Dean Ross, Thomas Hins off row 3. Will Newell from 7th ahead of Reese Howell in 8th. Mia Ott, Mario Vartanian running out your top 10.
On row number 6, you got Ashley Norman and Simon Mazzomo, Reese Gardner and John Miller on row 7. Reese a little bit further back than he probably would have liked him than we expected, so see how he goes in the race. Scott Hazlitt and Grant Medford on row 8. Row 9, Sebastian Murray Wesberg and Pat Gallo, followed by Hamish Cleland and Perry Anastakis, rounding out the top 20.
Back from there, maybe 21st, Sam Ross, Matthew Spencer alongside Joshua Cavallaro, Ole Fontana, Ira Fellerberg, Dylan DeBono from 26th place, Michael Yip from 27th, and Jake Sperry, Benjamin Dahlia, Brett Cananzi rounding out your 30-car field for this one. And 30 cars around a 3.7 kilometre racetrack shouldn't be too much of an issue, but given the fact that there's no room for error anywhere around the circuit, you've got to be a little bit apprehensive about how this may go. Interestingly enough, pole position here puts Harlow on the outside for turn 1, so if Jarrett gets a good start, he'll be able to run side by side with him. And then if he stays there on the outside through turn 2, which is reasonably easy enough, he'll have the inside for the first braking zone down at turn number 3. For the back half of the field, going to be a big bunch up on the entry to turn 1 because they will have to brake it down into the first corner. A lot of them starting all the way back before that kink up towards the start-finish line even begins. You just saw the weather up on your screen as well. It's 31 degrees for these drivers, pretty standard for them in this series. Just before, it's just past 4:30 in sim time as well as we hit the green flag. As the clock will wind down, and we'll look to the start now as we get 5 red lights from Detroit. And the green flag will fly. We'll go racing around the streets of Belle. That's a good start for your top 3. Look at the launch, though, from Dean Ross further back. He switches to the outside of Williams, trying to stick his nose in there for turn 2. It didn't quite work out for him. As they all filter through turns 1 and 2, it's a clean start for the field. Side by side for P5. Dean Ross trying to fend off Thomas Hinds behind, and Riley Preston trying to launch around the outside.
Yeah, and there's a couple of drivers looking to make moves, and a car off down the escape road. And more collisions going on just further back. 3 and 4 wide by the looks of it, but there's more carnage just up ahead, and Thomas Hinds is in the wall.
And he's been turned around on the exit of a corner, being collected by 3 more cars. We will get a replay for you of that as well, because that was a really unfortunate incident for him. He was turned across the nose of Will Newell heading up into turn number 4. We'll take a moment just to bookmark these replays and bring them up for you, thanks to Modem Simulation, as always. So, here's Hinds. That's Will Newell, was inside, just gets into his right rear, hits the fence, bounces back out in front of one of the RMS cars collected by that looked like Summer Mizomo in the background too. Norman was the first one to get into him.
Yeah, really unfortunate for Hinsey to have that happen. It was just the slightest bit of contact as well that it ended up happening, and Mizomo unfortunately caught up in that incident as well. And actually Norman too, just left with nowhere to go with the fact that there's just so little room around this track. It's just an absolute pain and can end very quickly in disaster when there's a car parked. But nevertheless, at the front of the field, Dean Ross coming under a lot of pressure, or putting a lot of pressure on the car of Kobe Williams. Williams going to put it up the inside, nearly a little bit of contact, but Preston now going to be trying to get on by Williams here.
Great opening lap for Dean Ross. Climbs up into 3rd place after starting from 5th. Preston lost a spot in the opening lap. You won't be happy with that. And now Kobe Williams thinking about coming back at Ross. He lifts off the throttle. Shows a nose up at turn 3 nonetheless. Forces Ross a little bit deep. And Preston almost losing it up and over the curb on the inside of the 3rd corner there. It's a very tricky curb. It actually unloads you quite a bit, as you saw there. So he will have to settle for 5th through this section of the racetrack. Jackson Harlow is now out to a 3/4 of a second margin pretty much at a Jarek, and then that big scrap for 3rd behind. Reese Gardner coming under pressure as well for 8th place.
Yeah, he just got the move done around the outside of Reese Howell there, just on the first few corners, but something's happened to Preston there. He's actually slowed down quite a bit. I wonder if he's maybe tagged the inside wall onto the direction. No, that's, yeah,
he would have got a slow down at turn 3.
What happened there? Oh, yeah, possibly he might have, although it's very unlikely that he would have, based on the fact that, yeah, possibly did, but very long time to still have served it.
Hamish Clun running into some issues as well. Limping it back to pit lane and eventually taking the tow. Looks like he whacked the fence on the exit of turn 2 and pretty much disintegrated the right side suspension of that car. Head back to live pictures. Across the line this time by the gap extends for Harlow out to 0.8 of a second now. Back to Jarrett, Ross, Williams, and Will Newell, your top 5. Biggest movers through the field so far. Back in the pack, Dylan DeBono up from 26th to 18th. Up 8 spots so far, and potentially going to make it even more. No, in fact, he's actually lost spots on this lap, so that's a big shame for him. And there's a mess in front of him. Vartani and Ross, Yip, and Joshua Cavallaro are scrapping hard for 20th place.
Yeah, they're all going at it pretty hard for those minor positions. Like you said, Vartani and Ross and all the drivers at the back really not leaving anything on the table. They're all line astern and very much in literal contact of each other, but nevertheless, it's very much a hard-fought battle back there, and you can just see a couple of drivers nearly brushing the wall as well. So no one's leaving anything on the table.
Contact off the exit of turn 5, just up here. Ashley Norman rotated out of the way, and oh no, another one was around as well. He gets collected by 2 more. That was John Miller that was stranded on the racing line. My eyes were on Ashley Norman, who was reversing into the escape runoff on the left-hand side of that corner. We'll get a replay up again of some more drama here at Belle Isle.
Yeah, it looks like just a minor bit of miscommunication between Miller and Norman, and you can just see that Miller's sort of, well, actually been bumped by Norman, who seems to have possibly got a better run, and then because of the fact that the car is unstabilized, pretty much Miller's run into the side of Norman, and Norman's ended up on the inside wall, and then everybody's come around the corner and not expecting the car to be there. So unfortunate for those who were caught up. Looks like the car that was involved was, I believe, Cavallaro. So couple of lucky that a few others got away with that, but Cavallaro not quite.
So to say, it was actually a pretty average rejoin as well. Drove it back onto the racing line, didn't quite clear himself before he did that. Still battling back there before they came across that too, Dylan DeBono, and is pretty much pushing his fellow compatriot around the racetrack at the moment.
Yeah, he certainly is, and you can see some Mizomo also in a battle with Grant Medford. Medford having just made a move on Mizomo at the inside, well, up the inside of turn number 3. Mizomo still carrying a bit of damage and hasn't pitted, so clearly the car's straighter than you'd think it is, but clearly is carrying a little bit of body damage to hamper him. But at the moment, Preston looking to get a move done on Mia Ott here, and Reese Garner's going to go up the inside as well to get another position. So 2 lost, 1 in contact between Reese Garner. Just Preston only barely held on to that. Now Mia Ott's going to lose another position here to Reese Howell if she's not careful. Howell up the inside, oh, bit of contact, but sends it back up the inside, and Ott's just going to hold on.
That corner is really tricky because you got that really long left-hander, and you see that inside open up very invitingly for the right-hander. Bill Newell will have that same scenario right now in the back of Dahlia. He doesn't go for it, unfortunately. The reason he's back there is he's served a drive-through penalty for the contact with Thomas Hins up on lap number 1 of the race, I believe it was. It was indeed. So Harlow's now out to a 1.3 second margin after putting in the fastest lap of the race last time. But it's 4.8 seconds back to Dean Ross. Kobe Williams back there as well. And a pretty big gap back to 5th on back. Preston Gardner, Ott, Howe, who are on your screen now. And you can see at the back of the shot, the gap that's formed to the rest of the field as well. Someone's mirror getting shooted across the track there.
Might have been Mizomo's. I did see that on the previous lap where there was a green one going across the circuit, and it indeed was Mizomo's mirror that was trundling on down the circuit after he clipped the outside wall through turn 2. So one less mirror for Mizomo, and it's probably the mirror that's going to be least important as it isn't on the driver's side. So just a little bit of aerodynamics trying to help that car a little bit.
This is an interesting pack from 13th back to 19th. At the moment, as they snake their way down the back straight. Here comes potential move up the inside. Dahlia showed the nose. Oh, it gets in him on the exit of the corner. Anastakis, it's a backpedal to avoid the fence, and Dahlia only just checked up in time. That brings Mario Vitania right up to his rear bumper now. Is behind, I think there was contact with DeBono and Gallo as well, as he's really dropped off the back of him. These guys really close together with just 1 or 2 laps remaining in this race now. 2 laps, says our director.
It looked like it was Sam Ross and Dylan DeBono who made contact just in the braking zone of the back straight. So, sounds like DeBono has indeed copped the drive-through penalty for that, which very quick, easy decision for race control. But Anastakis still having Benjamin Dahlia all over the back end of him coming out of turn 2. And you can just see that the run is not quite enough for Dahlia at the moment, but he's going to come under pressure from Vartanian as well. And Vartanian's going to look to try and break as late as he dares up the inside. And Dahlia makes a move on Anastakis as well. But Anastakis is just going to hold it around the outside here and hold on to the position.
Look at the checkup from Tyler. He had to avoid getting up the inside. Vartanian has the incentive now to try and get by, as all of them using all of the available track on the exit of the corners and just about keeping it off that concrete fence. Here they come down the back straight, which has 2 corners in it, including a very tricky braking zone up into the corner as Vartanian lunges up the inside of Dahlia, pushes him by Anastakis, and Anastakis ends up in the tyre bundle, and he's get collected as well by
Pat Gallo,
an unfortunate victim.
Yeah, Pat Gallo left nowhere really to go, unfortunately, with everything going on, and unfortunately with the fact that Anastakis bounced back onto the track. It pretty much ended up in tears for Pat Gallo, and also had Dylan DeBona run to the back of him. He also had nowhere really to go, so another few cars to add to probably the graveyard of damaged cars today. And Preston's got an issue here. Not quite sure what's happened to Preston, but is dropped off behind. Yeah. Wonder, yeah, maybe possibly has short filled the car, maybe in terms of fuel. So maybe having to do a bit of fuel saving on this last lap, but nevertheless, that's giving me Ott and Reese Howell a position, and if he's not careful, he's actually going to lose a position to Ashley Norman as well.
Championship potentially starting to unravel for Riley Preston. Then with just 3 races remaining in this one, looks like it might be closing up between Harlow and Jarek, because race 1 of the day gonna go the way of the Altus Esports driver Jackson Suzlin. Harlow recovers from a poor 2 rounds and fights back, because as he comes out of that final corner, he's going to get things done once again here on the Australian Turbo Touring Car iRacing Series, with another win to his name. Checkered flag falls as he crosses the line. Championship leader Jarek will follow him across in second.
Yeah, good win by Jackson, Susan, Harlow, and Jarek in second. This is really going to blow the championship open for Jarek to pretty much steal the win here, and it's all going on further back as Vartanian's in the wall, Neil's in the wall, Benjamin Dahlia's in the wall, even DeBono's in the wall. They're all in the fence.
Oh, you missed an opportunity there. Well, that's unfortunate for those guys. That word's been overused today, I can say that much already. But it has been the tale of this race so far. People getting caught up in other people's mess. It was a big dive that was not really on. Something I talked about earlier in the race, funnily enough, actually, up at that corner. And then you can see it all came unstuck down at the next corner there.
Yeah, there was definitely no holding back there for Will Newell on that last lap. Pretty much into the side of Dahlia and then into the wall. And then from there, just make front to rear contact with Vartanian, who pretty much then had nowhere to go but into the wall, and obviously everybody else getting caught up in it, unfortunately. So really unfortunate, but that has indeed happened.
Well, let's take a look at your race results from race 1 here at Belle Isle, the Detroit Grand Prix, the only completed street circuit in iRacing. Race victory went to Jackson Susan Harlow, 3.3 seconds back to Jarek. Pretty comfortable race for both those two, in fact, with a 7.8 gap. Back to Dean Ross, Kirby Williams, Reese Gardner, your top 5. Mia Ott driving up to 6th place in the end, ahead of Reese Howe. Riley Preston falling away late, ahead of Scott Hasler, and Grant Matterford, your top 10.
Rounding up the top 10 is going to be Sebastian Murray Wesberg, followed by Simon Zomo in 12th. Benjamin Dahlia limping home in 13th with Sam Ross 14th, Dylan DeBono 15th, Will Newell in 16th, Ira Felberg in 17th, 18th to Michael Yep, Alay Fontana in 19th, and rounding out the top 20, John Miller.
Rest of the drivers up there as well. Last 3 guys in the lead lap were Anastakis, Vartanian, and Spencer. Everyone else finishing 1 or more laps down after running into issues throughout the course of the race, even as early as lap number 1 for poor old Thomas Hinz. Brett Cananzi never took the start, and that's your field for race 1. Stay with us, so here on Simspeed TV. On the other side of this break, we're going qualifying and racing again here in Detroit.
iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
And he hits him again now. Rayon Fowler into the outside wall.
He's gonna pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's gonna get them all done with. What amazing!
Lee to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is gonna touch in. Pit press.
Saved it.
What a save!
Look to the outside as Cronkite goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
Trying this contact though.
Slides left to the racetrack. Chris Benner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Makashube, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome back to Simspeed TV to our coverage of the Australian Turbo Touring Car iRacing series on iRacing. Thanks to our series sponsors, Apex Imagery, RMS Race Management Service, RSW Graphics and Simfinity. My bad. Who will make all of this possible for you guys as well. And of course, Ira Feldberg behind the scenes, who gets it all up and running. Race 1 was pretty wild, wasn't it, Cameron?
It indeed was, with some interesting moments, followed by some rather wild moments as well. So yeah, it's going to be quite fascinating to see what happens in race 2 and whether we get anything worse or whether we get anything better.
And it's still typical street circuit sort of crashes, didn't we? Someone hits the fence and they're going to be collected inevitably by someone else. Plus, added to the fact that most of the corners at Belle are actually blind corners, with the exception of just a few. You don't really know what's coming up on the exit till you're halfway through and committed to your line, which is why we see so many multi-car crashes on places like this. And one of the reasons, along with technical, why we don't have many street circuits in iRacing. Qualifying is underway for our second race of the evening. Remember, second race is always 20 minutes in length with a mandatory 2-tyre pit stop thrown in to mix things up as well. For Jackson, Susan, and Harley, who we're looking to capitalise on that first race victory, try to bring the gap back and under, potentially even 5 points or less over Ryan Jarek, if Jarek does finish somewhere other than second place.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And obviously, being a street circuit, you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't really want to play Russian roulette with those concrete walls at all, because they do bite, and they bite hard, as we clearly saw in race 1. So we'll see what happens in the race, whether the likes of Ryan Jarek or the likes of Jackson Susan Harlow do indeed put themselves at the top. We may even see Riley Preston make a bit of a comeback and put himself at the top and end up trying to steal some points away. Who knows?
Well, good thing about a second qualifying session is it allows drivers that had a poor run in race number 1 to try and have another crack. Someone like John Miller, who's got some pretty decent pace, but he was a victim of a crash with Ashley Norman down at that very corner halfway through the event. As you ride on board with him down that back straight away, running his VR, running 2 cameras. Fancy.
Yeah, probably a first that we've seen with having someone run 2 cameras, but you get 2 perspectives, so it's pretty cool to have 2 perspectives. You get one of on the side of how hard he's working, and then one more or less of what he's actually seeing in VR. So yeah, pretty cool.
You know what time it is, Simon? Cameron? Oh, God. Something about you two. Maybe you're both insufferable. I just can't tell you apart. It's time for your lap of the track.
Oh, all right. Well, let's get it underway. So coming across the line into turn 1 on board with John Miller here, coming through turn 1, nice and clean, trying to set the run up through turn 2 to get a nice exit from turn 2 onto the following long straight. We head down the bumpy, reasonably shortish but longish straight before you head into the braking zone for turn number 3, which is a 90-degree right-hander hitting the inside curb to help the car turn without using too much to get yourself a side on or off track, and then using that little bit of curb on that left-hand side before getting into turn number 4, trying to use maximum amount of track through the staircase section here and avoiding that inside curb as Miller running a little bit deep and ended up sliding the car, but managing to get it stopped and keeping it out of the walls by the looks of it before heading onto the back straight to hug that inside line on the right hand side to make it as short as possible, switching over to the left for the braking zone for the back end of the circuit into the corner that we saw. A little bit of a shunt-in with multiple drivers involved, and very close to the wall there was John Miller before getting the wall on the right to get through to the left, staying off that inside curb, and coming through the fountain section, running right up as close as you dare, possibly even using a little bit of curb on that left-hand side through the hairpin of the third to last corner before heading down the little short chute towards second to last corner, avoiding that inside curb again. Doing a fantastic job as John Miller before heading through the final corner and making sure you get a very nice exit and keeping it out of the wall. Very, very close. So possibly would have been a 0x there for John Miller, but if not, very good lap. And that is a lap around Belle.
And it puts him 12th with a 1:39.479. Harlow's got a margin of 0.6 of a second at the moment, back to Ryan Jarek out at the front. Will Neal back in 3rd at the moment, had a mere 4th and Reese Howe 5th. Harlow did say at the end of last week that he was confident heading into here. It's a track he enjoys, so he certainly put that to the test today and proving it very much so. Hamish Clurd, another driver, looking to bounce back after a poor race 1, after a brush with the fence at high speed, undid some of the mechanics work on his suspension, which is now working hard over the bumps down the back straight.
Yeah, you can see those springs and shocks doing a lot of work, bouncing or oscillating up and down a lot over these over these bumps in the corners and down the straights in the street circuit. Obviously, not necessarily a paved circuit. It's actually more of a concrete sort of one, as you can see in the multiple sort of sections of concrete where there's splits in different various places where bumps can sort of form it from cars driving over it, but nevertheless very close to the wall there, and I possibly wonder if he's clipped the wall there. If not, that was extremely close to the wall, but nevertheless it looks like it's a pretty reasonable lap for Hamish Clurd as he comes out of the final corner. A little bit of room against that outside wall to avoid getting a 0x as he comes through onto the front straight, comes across the line, and it's going to be a no time, so it was indeed a 0x.
It's unfortunate. Oh, I've got to find a new word for unfortunate. Go bring out the thesaurus behind the scenes, Jay. Tell me a new word for unfortunate, eh? Jay just made a really, really bad joke that I'm glad no one heard. 7/10 now for Harlow. The gap just continues to get bigger. He was dominant for the first half of the season, wasn't he, Cameron? But he's showing tonight so far, probably looking to eclipse all of that.
I mean, he's has indeed just gone quicker again. So Harlow clearly stomping the authority and going as quick as he possibly can. And Preston with a 37.5, so doesn't improve on his time. Jarek coming through the final sector now to complete his third and final lap. We'll see what Jarek can do and whether he can put himself onto pole and beat Harlow, or whether he's going to have to settle for second again. He's going to come across the lines 37.0, going to be P2.
Check this out. Dylan De Bono has propped himself up into P4. He's only 1.2 off the pace, so good lap from him. Zomo up in 7th. Look how tight it is from 4th back to 8th. Just a 10th of a second covering those drivers.
Yeah, it's incredibly tight at the top at the moment, and inside that top 10, in fact. So Reese Gardner's gone to P9 by the looks of it as well. So it's very, very close and a very competitive top 10 by the looks of it. Dean Ross is going to come across the line, 37.1, improves to P3. So the gap even closes even more.
Dean Ross continues to improve his qualifying pace over the course of the season. I reckon look out for him in Season 4. Which, by the way, I'm sure next week we'll be announcing the tracks for that season. Looking forward to finding out myself what it's going to be. Dylan De Bono, 137.396. He
improved
his time, but he stays in 5th place.
Yeah. Dean Ross and Olaf Fontana are the last drivers on laps by the looks of it. Seb's backed out of it by the looks of it. Westberg not on a lap, but we'll see what Ross can do with obviously one more lap and just enough time as well to finish this lap. Comes through the final sector now. We'll see whether he can improve on P3. Probably going to be a bit of a hard task to try and beat Jericho, though. It is only a 10th, but that said, finding a 10th around a street circuit definitely is a hard task when you're looking to try and get that much time out of it when you're so committed as it is, but comes across the line. Doesn't actually improve down a lap either.
Picked up a 0 times and a brush with the fence somewhere around the racetrack. Ole Fontana going to be one of the final drivers to put down a qualifying time. Spencer, Kobe Williams, and Anastakis have not registered a lap time at all in this session, unfortunately, as Fontana will complete the 3rd and final lap of the qualifying session with 15 seconds left on the clock. It's a 140.6, it's 141 flat and won't improve the spot in qualifying. So as that wraps to a conclusion, let's take a look at your starting grid for the feature race, Race 2, with a mandatory pit stop thrown in as well. Here from the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle. Once again, the front row is shared by Jackson, Susan Harlow, and Ryan Jarek. Dean Ross and Preston off 3rd, Preston again in 4th. Dylan De Bono in 5th, Thomas Hinn 6th, Will Newell qualifying as 7th out of Summer Mizomo, Ashley Norman and Reese Gardner.
Mario Valtanian on row 6 with Hamish Cleland. Row 7 will be Grant Matterford and Mia Ott. Row 8 going to be Michael Yip and Reese Hell, Joshua Cavallaro and Scott Hasler on row 9. Sam Ross and Sebastian Murray Westberg rounding out the top 20 on row 10.
Pat Gallo, John Miller off row number 11. Grant Matterford Ira Felberg and Benjamin Dahlia on row 12. Jake Sperry and Ole Fontana, 25th and 26th. Kobe Williams, Matthew Spencer will line up out of 27th and 28th, with Parry and Astakis lining up off 29th on the grid. A minute left in the countdown here. About 9 degrees cooler than it was in race 1, so a bit more grip out there for these drivers. Only 23-degree track temp and almost 8 p.m. in sim time by the time we actually hit the green flag here. Partly cloudy skies, which might have a bit of an effect for them as well. Estimated race distance here of 13 laps. Not quite double race 1, as a result of having to tour down the lane and stay stationary for enough time to help your mechanics whip 2 tyres on your car, which is an interesting tactical decision that the drivers have to make. Which 2 tyres do they take, and when do they do it? Anywhere from the end of lap 1 to the beginning of the final lap of the race is your pit window, and we've seen everything from each extreme to the other. Really depends on where you're on the field. A lot of drivers might want to get out of the drama of being in a pack with potential for cars to crash and leave them with nowhere to go in front of them. So watch out for potentially a flurry of pit stops at lap 1, but there's only one way to find out, and it is to go racing in Belle Isle for the final time tonight. The 5 red lights are ablaze, and Jackson Susan Harlow looking for the best start that he could want as the green flag flies, and he gets it. Going nowhere is Ryan Jerrick, and that is a big drama for Preston, who has to slice around him. Thomas Hinds trying to get around him as well. Will make contact with him up through turn number 2, but he will hold on, Jerrick, to what should be P5 here. Down the run to turn 3 they go. He's got the inside on Preston, so he might get this spot back. Onto the brakes and up and over the curb. Pulls it up, but Preston fighting hard on the outside.
Oh, no. Big shunt behind, everybody ploughing into each other. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pretty much everybody through the back of about 10th place. Well, 10th place has been involved in a bit of a pile up at turn number 3.
Still trying to get 4th place back as Riley Preston after that after a shocking start, for Ryan Jerrick, trying to take away 4th place from Preston, who was really disadvantaged off the line after the jerk it around to the outside of Preston. Jerrick. My names tonight leave a bit to be desired.
Oh, you'll get there one day eventually. I was about to call you Simon, but oh well. There really is. Jerrick still on a bit of a recovery here. It'll be interesting to see if he does indeed pit to try and get a bit of clean air and have to avoid trying to pass cars, but nevertheless, we'll see what happens. This will be helping Preston a little bit, and this will definitely be helping Harlow as well, with the fact that there's going to be that many points separating the two.
No one from the top 5 decides to pit on lap number 1, which actually isn't that surprising. There's the guys further down the order that might decide to do it, but no takers. Oh, Reese Howell and Nia Ott are both into pit lane. Reese Howell's actually out of the race. Michael Yip is down on pit road, so is Joshua Cavallaro, Sebastian Murray Westberg, Pat Gallo, John Miller, and Pariana Stakis.
Yeah, that's definitely going to need a replay for what's happened to Reese Howell. That's a big moment, actually, that has happened not too long after the back straight with a... I actually can't explain that. It's very different. Fair to say, don't hit that outside wall there.
Nope, not a good fence to hit. I mean, none of the fences are good to hit, but especially that one. So what, Dean Ross has done a reasonably good job of sticking with Harlow here. He's only half a second behind him at the moment, which is pretty worrying for Harlow if he does make a mistake somewhere on the racetrack. Slaps the fence here or slaps the fence there, and Ross will be all over the back of him. Dylan Bono just over a second and a half back as well. Preston ranging up to the back of him and dragging Jerrick and Hinds with him. These guys are getting really close together now for 3rd place. See if any of these guys decide to pit and get out of the drama. Preston will.
Yeah. So Preston clearly trying to find a bit of clean air in this tight area, although with everybody coming down in the pit lane, this is really going to make it quite interesting.
Gardner, Mizomo, Vartanian pitting as well. add Jake Sperry to that list. Keep an eye on pit exit to see who wins the battle off pit road between Hins and Preston. You would expect Preston, but sometimes weird things happen down on pit road, especially so in this series. As we've seen over the years, Vitani is actually serving a drive-through. Either that or he missed his pit bay.
Serving drive by the looks of it.
Preston has had a shocking stop. Reese Gardner's jumped both him and Hins, and Hins has come out ahead of Preston.
Quite sure what's happened there between Preston.
Interesting rejoin there, which has resulted in a bit of drama out on the racetrack for about the dozenth time today.
Yeah, not quite sure what's happened there, whether the car of Michael Yip's come around the corner and not expected Mizomo to be there, or whether he's thought he was going to get a better run. Not quite sure, but Mizomo coming off second best, it's hard to actually got damage, because the car seemingly is still driving straight despite hitting that wall with reasonable force.
I don't know what you just said, Cameron. Ah! Guys! Can we start a petition to rename Cameron to Simon and Simon to Cameron? We need a permanent graphic on the screen that has the names of the commentators, I think.
I mean, Fonty does it, so I think Jay should probably keep on doing it as well, just to remind Ryan who is indeed commenting. But the mirror there missing, well, coming off the car of, I think that was Michael Yip by the looks of it, and rolling down the road. But nevertheless, Simons are actually very lucky to get away with that contact earlier on, and Michael Yip managing to just stay ahead of Michael Yip. And Yip's actually just been given a drive-through for the incident with Mizomo as well.
He has. It's unfortunate. Nope, it's unlucky. Can I claim that I compensate with too many different people each week? And that's my defense? You're just one of many of my co-commentators here, Cameron.
Yes, I'm sure you are, but that's a premium meme there on the director's feed that we've got from Jay, with clearly displaying who Ryan is indeed commentating with.
I can't actually see it because my internet is about as useful as a potato, which coincidentally is what's running my computer. But either way, through all of this, there is action happening on the racetrack, and there's 13 minutes left of it at the moment in race 2 here in the Australian Turbo Touring Car iRacing series. Still waiting on some of those top drivers to pit, namely Jackson Harlow, Dean Ross. Dylan DeBono's up into 3rd place, still driving a very nice race at the moment. He's got a big gap back to Hamish Clun and Kobe Williams, which are the rest of the field behind him. I think probably half the field's pitted by this point. First car to have pitted would be, I believe, Reese Gardner up in 14th place.
Yeah, no, Norman Reese is the first person, well, the top driver who has pitted at the moment. Everybody from pretty much 9th to 1st, and then Fontana, Ross, and Norman yet to pit by the looks of it. So pretty much everybody else has pitted.
Good news for Harlow is he's not going to be under any pressure. His closest rival before the pit stop phase is still a long way back, and it's looking like it's going to be a comfortable victory again for him, barring any mistakes. Touch wood on that one, as Jarek is really starting to heap the pressure on Reese Gardner now after losing out at the start of the race after that shocking start where he went quite literally nowhere. Gardner, having started from 10th, is up here and fighting for what could be a provisional podium place. And Preston's dropped a lot of time as well. Even after the pit stop, he's continued to drop time to these guys. He's behind Will Neal now as well.
Yeah, it's interesting what's happening to Preston. He just seems to be struggling a little bit, and has got the car of Mia Ott as well all over the rear end, putting a bit of pressure on as well. So not quite sure what Preston is struggling with around this track, whether it's a bit of setup or maybe just a lack of experience around these sort of street circuits, but nevertheless is a little bit down the order and not really going to be helping himself as far as the championship goes, but just ahead of them. Reece Gardner coming under pressure from the likes of Ryan Jerrick and also Thomas Hinds as well, with Will Neal not too far behind. So we'll see how this battle pans out, and we'll see Reece pretty much in contention for a podium here. So he's going to want to try and hold Jerrick behind him for as long as he possibly can, but Jerrick also trying to get a bit of points headed towards the championship.
Certainly, everything's going to be crucial for Ryan Jerrick. Preston has purposely overfueled the car because he was short last race. So that explains that and why he is falling down the order. Jerrick is now all over the back bumper of Reece Gardner, almost pushing him through the final sector on the racetrack, and Thomas Hinds right there now as well. These three really started to close up as the trio behind them close up as well. We need the side-by-side that we had for about a week to return to our Simspeed screens, because these are the moments when we need it, as Jay throws around one of his many promises that he will be back. So expect that in 2024 at least. Here comes Hinds, showing a nose, squeezing to the inside of Ryan Jerrick, just getting between himself and the fence. On the brakes, Jerrick strong on the outside. He cleans it up back around there and takes the spot away.
Yeah, certainly a good move there by Ryan Jerrick to just hold on off Thomas Hinds, who looked very much like he would have made that move stick, but just didn't quite manage to get the job done. And just behind also Will Neal coming under pressure from Riley Preston. Mia Ott still pressuring the back end of Riley Preston as well. So it's all going on for these minor few positions.
Out of the back straight, anyone close enough to make a move? No, not quite this time, as they throw it over that curve on the inside, which weirdly sits about halfway across the racing surface, as that is Ott getting to the head of the train, getting by Preston and Newell in the space of a lap. Something's definitely gone down between those three.
Yeah, looks like Riley Preston has tried to make a move up the inside of Will Neal at the previous corner. Has gone a little bit too deep, managed to keep it out of the wall, but then nearly ended up in the wall anyway with a bit of contact between himself and Will Neal next corner. So very lucky for Preston to get away with that, but that's another two positions that Preston has lost and not going to be really helping his championship at all.
Back towards turn 3. Gardner's opened it up by a couple car lengths now. So he's a bit more comfortable than he was a lap or so ago over Ryan Jerrick, but still, the gap will reduce up there in turn 3 as Gardner just slid through the corner a little bit and scrubbed off a bit more speed than he wanted. Good news about racing on a street circuit is that it is very hard to pass. The best opportunity is down at turn 3 and then down here at the end of the back straight, and they're basically your only two opportunities unless you're extremely bold on the brakes and willing to make a bit of contact to get it done.
Yeah, you're certainly right. It doesn't offer too many passing opportunities, this track, but nevertheless, if you can get it done at one of the riskier ones, you're definitely going to be rewarded with another position that you're going to be relishing at. But nevertheless, we'll see how Ryan Jerrick tries to find a way on by Reece Gardner is going past lap car of Ole Fontana. They were there, but nevertheless, Jerrick still pressuring the car of Reese Garner a lot. Can't quite seem to find the edge over him and can't quite seem to find a way past.
Harlow's on pit road as well, and as we speak, he's driving it out of pit lane and into a mile of clean air ahead of Ira Felberg and behind Grant Matterford. So his comfortable race will continue out at the provisional head of the field. Still a few guys yet to make their stops as Jarrett's a lot closer this time. Has he got the run up and over the crest now to turn number 2 to potentially pull a move at turn 3? Gardner's defending, drives it down the right-hand side of the racetrack, which forces Jarrett to launch it around the outside, looking for the crossover through turn 3. Doesn't quite get the momentum he needs. He's going to have to slot back in line here through the run for turn 4 and 5.
Yeah, Jarek has to be careful about this because he doesn't want to let Thomas Hinds through as well, or possibly make a mistake and let Thomas Hinds get ahead of both of them. So he's really got to try and set this one up as best as he can. And he's got a very good run onto the back straight here, and Reese Garner is going to go defensive to the right-hand side of the road. So Jarek's going to have to try and go the long way around. He can hold around the outside at the next corner. He's going to have the inside after that, but Gardner going as deep as he can over the curb and just manages to hold on.
The racing line towards the braking zone at that back straight is naturally defensive, which definitely aided Gardner there. Here he goes to his inside through the double left-hander. This is going to get tight down at the next one. He's got the inside line as Gardner, so he should hold on. But it's very easy to squeeze the car on the outside of the fence. He leaves plenty of racing room. Great respect being shown, but they're still side by side. And now this is very tricky, and Jarek knows it. He lifts off and tries to switch back to the inside. He can't do it. The battle will continue as Gardner holds on. But that's a poor exit for the Eclipse Sim Sportsman. And here comes Thomas Hinds to the inside. Almost gets into him.
Yeah, almost does indeed get into him. But Don DeBono has actually come out ahead of Reese Garner and Ryan Jarek in this little group behind. So he's gained a bit of time there from these lot battling. And this is really going to help DeBono and possibly going to be on for a podium here.
Provisional P2 for Dylan DeBono. On for a career best here if he keeps it together and these guys continue to scrap away behind them. He's having a cracking night, isn't he, so far? As we have only a couple laps left to go into this race, and I can't wait for it to finish and I can go and wash my mouth out with some, you know, pro commentating, proper word stuff. God help me.
I can't respond to that, so I'm just going to carry on. But something's happened to Mia Op by the looks of it. No, never mind.
Something's happening to Reese Gardner too, because a poor run onto the back straights cost him to Jarek, and now Hinds is all over him as well. Going to be a valiant defense, but in the end, he's going to lose 2 spots in 1 lap. And they both go on by him, and Gardner falls back to what should be P5 once it all shakes out.
Yeah, certainly will. And now Mia actually all over the back end of this battle as well, and Preston's actually started to drop back as well from the likes of Mia Ott, and is actually starting to fall into the clutches of Williams and Newell as well. So if he's not actually careful, he might actually start to drop off quite badly here. But nevertheless, Mia Ott now looking at a possible top 6, if not possibly a top 5, although probably going to be a little bit hard pressed with how much longer is left in this race. Just over 2 and a bit laps left in the race, so really going to be hard pressed to get a top 5. But Mia going to give it everything she possibly can to try and get up inside that top 6.
Have been driven away up from 14th on the grid, having a good strong drive back up the order after missing out in qualifying in race 2 as opposed to her efforts in the first one. DeBono still looking comfortable there in second place to hold on to that for the first time in his TCR career here on Simspeed TV. Speaking of comfortable, the margin for Harlow is now completely unassailable, it would seem. Although we can't forget about Dean Ross out front, still hasn't pitted. And although he could be on to challenge DeBono for this P2 here. Ross is in now, and we'll see where he rejoins. But be ahead of DeBono or behind as DeBono comes through the final corner now. Harlow comes across the stripe. This might not be the last lap of the race.
Ross has actually come out in P2 by a decent margin as well to Dylan DeBono. So DeBono slots back into the third, and now it's going to be all about who's going to end up getting fifth here by the looks of it.
Yes, that's worked beautifully for Dean Ross and DeBono. We're looking at a podium, which will still be a career best for him. As Mia Ott now is pushing Gardner down the straight towards turn 3. Gardner defending again outside for Ott. Leaves too much room for Gardner and costs herself a chance to stay side by side up there through the third corner as Gardner continues to struggle on those tyres after being one of the first guys to pit in this one. Reese whacked the fence there as well, which is not going to be helping Maddie. He's still got both wing mirrors attached to his car.
Seems to be driving straight as well, so very surprised that it actually managed to take the beating that it did with how much force that it hit the wall with, but nevertheless going to be coming under pressure here. Will Gardner from Mia Ott is really pushing hard to try and find a way on by Reese, who's definitely not going to let this one go easily for the Simspeed Cup, that's for sure.
It is the final lap, though, for the drivers out on the race track. No, white flag now for Jackson Harlow.
Yeah, so one lap to go here for Jackson Cesanalo. Has pretty much had a perfect run in these last two rounds, and it's going to be pretty happy indeed. But Reese Gardner is going to be facing a lot of pressure here on this last lap from Mia Ott for this spot, for this final top 6 spot. But nevertheless, we'll see what happens. And also, Kobe Williams just not too far behind, starting to put a bit of pressure on Will Newell as well for the final spots inside the top 10.
Still trying, but still not finding a way by, and the opportunity is quickly running out for Ott here, as Williams and Newell will have an opportunity at the end of the back straight to try and switch around their spots if Williams can get the run on a car that's just disappeared from screen, comes back right in front. Oh no, DeBono has lost his spot. Jarek sweeps around the outside.
Oh.
He gets hit. He saves it though, and now Hin's up the inside as well. He backs out of it, but DeBono falls off the podium and goes back to 4th.
Yeah, you do maybe have to wonder if there's people short on fuel here, and hands in the wall there as well by the looks of it. But Harlow is going to take a commanding dominant victory here to make it 2 rounds in a row to be a clean sweep, and second place is indeed going to go to Dean Ross. But it's all on for these final spots inside the top 5 and on the podium, but it looks like Jerk is barely going to hold on enough to take home 3rd place from Dylan DeBono. Thomason's and Dylan DeBono going to round out the top 5. Reese Gardner will just hold on off Mia Ott. Preston going to come home in 8th, which is not going to be what he's going to have wanted.
Replay up on screen. This is a jump for Simon Mizomo with Hamish Cleland up in front of him. Towards the back straight we go.
Oh, Mizomo clipping the inside wall.
Yep. And hard into the outside fence he went. And was collected by Scott Hasler as well. And you can see here how little notice Hasler had of this incident as we ride on board with him for a replay.
Yeah, you see nowhere to go really, and just ended up pretty much pole driving into the side of Simon Mizomo.
Let's take a look at our race results then. From race 2 and round 5 of the Australian Turbo Touring Car iRacing Series. Harlow's margin of victory was 8.6 seconds in the end. Back to Dean Ross, and then of course Jarek DeBono went Hins, your top 5. Reese Gardner coming home 6th ahead of Mia Ott, Preston, Will Newell. Kobe Williams rounded out your top 10. Wasn't quite able to get that one last spot there on the final lap.
Hamish Gulland going to come home in 11th, followed by Cavallaro in 12th, Hasler 13th, and Sebastian Murray Wurzburg in 14th. 15th going to go to Mario Vartani and Benjamin Daly in 16th. 17th, Matthew Spencer and Ross in 18th. 19th to Ashley Norman and Ira Felberg, rounding out the top 20.
You can see the rest of the results scroll by on your screen. We're going to have to wrap things up. Unfortunately, we can't do any interviews today here on Simspeed TV, but rest assured we'll be back with some at the end of the championship next time out. But if you want to stay tuned and don't miss that championship finale, make sure you like us on social media at Simspeed Esports Network on Facebook and Simspeed TV on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well to catch all the action right here on Australia's #1 sim racing broadcaster. From myself, Ryan Jones, and from Cameron Dance alongside of me and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.